G'day guys, today we're taking a look at the Anbernic RG Nano. I picked mine up from AliExpress during the last sale for only $45 Australian delivered, including GST. But these usually go for around $80 Australian delivered. Let's take it out of the box and see what you get. First thing we see is the nice little Anbernic thank you card. We did get the same one in our RG35XX SP. That is just a nice little touch. Next we have a crinkled, slightly dirty manual. This is exactly how I received it, with all the creases and the corners folded, and there's also some food smudges on it. I don't know if you can see it, a little bit of orange there, and a little bit more up there. This little manual is pretty handy, even if it is pretty dirty and crinkled in mine, because it does tell you all of the important shortcuts. Flipping the manual over, it is just the same as the English side, only in Chinese. Not as handy. Next we have the RG Nano itself, a little plastic sleeve. We'll put that aside for now. We also have a small keyring that we can attach to the RG Nano. There we go. And in this white box should be our USB-C cable and USB-C to headphone adapter. Opening the box up, we do have both of those. There's no headphone socket on the RG Nano itself, so you do need to use this USB-C adapter if you do want to use headphones. Taking RG Nano out of the little sleeve now. You can see we do have the usual small piece of foam to protect the screen. And here is the handheld itself. I did go with the blue color, as you can see. It does seem to be fully metal. I believe it's anodized aluminium. It's got really nice premium feel to it. On the front, you got your very small D-pad, start and select, A, B, X, and Y. Nothing on the left-hand side. On the bottom, you've got the lanyard hole where you put your lanyard strap. On the back, you've got 4 screws, as well as the model information. On the right-hand side, you have the micro SD card slot, as well as the power and function button. It is the same button, but it does have multiple uses. On the bottom is a speaker grill, and on the top is your L and R buttons, as well as your single USB-C port. This is where you charge it and also connect your headphone adapter. Just to get a reference of how small it actually is, here it is next to a standard Gameboy Advance cart. As you can see, it's pretty much the same size. And here is a standard Nintendo DS cart. The DS cart itself is roughly the same size as the screen. Here it is next to my ruler. It's roughly 4 centimeters wide, 6.5 centimeters long, and around 1.5 centimeters thick. It is very, very small. Let's power it on. Just hold down the power button on the right-hand side for a few seconds. There's the Anbernic logo, and it does boot straight to a clock. This could be handy, just sitting on your desk being used as a clock, since it does look really nice. You can press select to set the time and date. It's pretty straightforward, up and down to change the values, and left and right to select which value you want to change. Once you're finished, just press select to get out of it. You will see the clock screen every time when doing a hard power off, and to get into the actual system menu, just press start. From this main menu, you can press the L and R buttons to change the category. We'll start by taking a look at the settings. You've got the G Menu 2X, which is the currently selected launcher. Pretty basic options, nothing too fancy. Just press start to get out of it. Go over to skin, and that's where you can change your current theme, or skin as they call it. There is a fair few to choose from. We'll see what Zelda looks like. Once you've selected it, just press start. So there's the theme there. It is pretty much the same as the RG35XX SP, which I have covered previously. I might go back into it and just change it back to the default look. There is a different launcher built in, but we'll cover that in a little bit. Next up, you have the user manual, which is just a plain text file. This tells you basically what was written in that little pamphlet, which came covered in food for me. Again, press start to exit. Wallpaper, there is a bunch built in. The blue one looks pretty good, I think. We'll go over to applications. There's 2 different file managers, Explorer and Commander. Commander is the same one that's used in ArcOS for the R36S. So if you've used an R36S before, you'll probably be pretty familiar with this. Just press Y to bring up the menu and go down to quit to exit out. You've got a clock and calendar, pretty basic. You can also set the time and date in here as well. This time, select exits. It's a bit annoying they don't have a universal back or exit button, but you do get used to it pretty quick. Got an input tester. It's pretty hard to see the buttons on the screen. Even in real life, they are very dark grey, but once you press it, they do highlight. So you can see there, up, down, left, right, A, B, X, Y, L and R, select and start, and finally the power/function button. To get out, just press start and select. It does beep twice, so you can check the speaker as well. Takes you back to the clock, just press start to go back to the main menu. Got a calculator, pretty standard. Punch the numbers in, times something. Press start to calculate, and press the power button once to bring up the main menu. There we go. Actually, it just quits in calculator. Normally it brings up a little menu. Finally, we have a terminal. When you first open it, it gives you a little bit of info on how to use it. Let's press A to skip it. And there's the little on-screen keyboard. It is tiny. We'll do LS for list. Go all the way over to enter. Yeah, pretty standard. You can type in exit to quit as well. There we go. Not too sure what that would be used for, but I'm sure it has come in handy at some point. Next, we've got all of our emulators. You've got Game Gear, Game Boy, Gameboy Colour, and Gameboy Advanced. Adobe Flash 8 emulator, that's pretty cool. Lynx, Mega Drive, and Master System. NES, PC Engine, Pokemon Mini, PlayStation 1. Just your generic RetroArch front end. Sega Master System and Game Gear. Wonder Swan and Super Nintendo. Virtual Boy, and Wonder Swan again. Or Wonder Swan Color this time. Next, you've got your ports section. So Bomberman, Cannonball, which is Outrun. Never heard of this one before. Or this one. N-Crafty, which is like a creative mode Minecraft port. It's very neat. It runs very, very fast, surprisingly. And a tower defense game. Finally, we have the media tab. You've got a video player as well as a music player. There's also another music player down here, but in Chinese. Going across to RetroArch, you can open the cores individually. Not too sure when you would be doing that though. I notice it does have DOSBox on here, so that is pretty cool. We'll go back to media and see if we can play a video. So there's two on here. I haven't put anything on this SD card. Everything is 100% stock. Although it does look used. As mentioned, the manual did come with some food on it and all crushed. We'll do Need for Speed The Run. Yeah, it's playing. That is pretty cool. It's very, very small, but it does work. You press select to exit out of the movie player. Once back in the media player menu, you press start to exit out of that menu to go back to the main menu. A little bit confusing. Go to music player. So it came with 3 songs, Hotel California, Sai Chin, and Leslie Chow. I'll try play it, but I probably can't keep the audio in. I think B plays it. You can press X to pause it. I can't actually play the music for you, but it does play on perfectly, and it is very loud. I think to exit out, it should be select again. No. Pressing select changes the current screen. So the playlist, track info, file browser, pretty much it. I think pressing start might quit. It does not. Pressing the power button once might quit. Maybe start and select. Start and select did quit out, but it did take me a few tries. Not too sure why that is. Let's try out a few games. We might skip Game Boy and go straight to Game Boy Color. It does come with a ton of games already on here, but unfortunately all of the good ones are missing. There's no Super Mario World, no Yoshi's Island, no Donkey Kong Country games, and no Pokemon games. That is pretty disappointing. You can obviously add your own, but I'm guessing they didn't include it just to avoid a potential lawsuit with Nintendo. We'll try something we can play straight away, Mega Man Extreme 2. When you open a game, it brings up this little menu. You can resume or start a new game. When I first got this, pretty much every game I tried did already have a saved game, so I could go to resume and resume someone else's file. I'm not sure if that is just part of the SD image that they flash on all the SD cards, or if this is in fact a used handheld, potentially a return. We'll go resume. It asks you if you're sure, press A again. It is a bit loud, so I'll press the power button once, which brings up the main menu, so you can change the volume, turn it down a little bit, press up and down to change the option, so exit game, aspect ratio, load and save, and brightness. I have it turned fairly down. It does go really bright, as you can see. We'll keep it down to 3 though, that seems to be the sweet spot. I think pressing select should take us back to the game. No, start. Maybe A, B. To get back to the game, just press the power button once more. So it is really hard to control just because it is so small. But the game is running flawlessly. So it handles Game Boy, Game Boy Color perfectly. We'll quit out of that. We'll try a different game. So again, pressing power button to bring up the menu, go up to exit, and press A twice. To get out of the ROM selector, you have to press start. We'll try Game Boy Advanced. Again, there's no Pokemon, no Donkey Kong Country. A little bit unfortunate. No Mario Kart even. Does have Metroid. We'll try Metroid Zero Mission. So it seems to be running full speed. It does look really, really nice, this screen. I can't stress that enough. So this runs perfectly fine. Seems to be full speed, no lag. Nice and smooth. I'd say Game Boy Advance should be pretty much fully playable. Obviously really hard to run. ROM hacks won't be. But pretty much every game I've tried on this so far has run flawlessly. Again, press the power button once to bring up the little menu. You've got the same options as Game Boy Color. And let's go down to exit. Again, press start to go back to the main menu. There's no Adobe Flash files on here. It is just empty, so we can't test that. We'll try some PlayStation 1, which is the most demanding system that you can play on this. This does actually have Command and Conquer Red Alert on here, but also Gran Turismo 2. Both of them run really, really good. We'll load up Gran Turismo 2, and we do want to resume the game. Again, this isn't my save file, this is already on here. I don't know why they picked this car, it's really hard to control. But yeah, it runs perfectly fine. I'm just a terrible player. Pressing the button, again, very standard uniform menu. It does struggle with Super Nintendo, so we'll show some games off in here. Again, none of the classics are here, so no Super Mario World, no Donkey Kong Country. It has Rockman instead of Mega Man, just the Japanese version. We'll go with Mega Man X3 since it does use a custom chip, so we'll see how well it emulates that. So far, so good. So this runs perfectly fine, no issues, no lag spikes. It all looks really nice and crisp. We'll quit out of Mega Man, and we'll try Doom for the Super Nintendo, which does run incredibly poorly. Pretty sure I saw it in here. There it is, Doom. We'll go resume. So you can see it is fairly slow. It seems to be running around 30% full speed. There are some bits where it does really well, but generally it is pretty slow. Yeah, not the best. Probably best to avoid the Super Nintendo port. We'll go back to the main menu, and if we press the power button here, it brings up a similar menu that we see in a game, but we can obviously power it down. One of the options is Set Launcher RetroFE, which is retro front end. Press A on that. It does change the whole front theme. So we'll press Start on here, and I think this is a much nicer theme. Reminds me a lot of RetroPie, which I guess isn't surprising since this is probably the same theme. There is another cool feature of this. If we go into a game, we'll do Game Boy this time. You can see we've got cover art. It looks really good. I think this front end is definitely a lot better than the default. Not too sure why the other one's the default. We'll pick a game. We'll do Legend of Zelda. We'll go resume. So as you can see, Game Boy looks absolutely beautiful. It has the sepia tone. Now the cool feature I want to show off is if we hold down the power button, keep holding it, it shuts down. So it should be fully powered off. If we turn it back on, holding the power button, and don't touch it, it should boot straight back into the game we were playing. That was really quick. It was around 3 seconds. This feature is amazing for quick play sessions. So if you do have it on the keyring, and you've got a few minutes downtime, you can power the system on and be back into the game you were playing in only a few seconds. It's very, very, very cool. Again, you can just quick tap it to bring up the menu, go to exit, and if you power off on this screen outside of a game, hold it down. If you don't hold it down long enough, it takes you to the clock again, so keep holding it. There we go. And if you power it back on, it doesn't load into a game, obviously, since we weren't playing one when we shut it down. It does just take us straight back to the clock. There we go, and you just press start to get into the actual main menu. I think next we should try and copy some games over to it. We're over on our Windows 11 PC now, and I think I'll start by taking the SD card out of the RG Nano and putting it straight into our computer. I believe it should be a Linux file system, so we should be able to access it, but I do just want to take a look at the partition layout. So there it is there, it did show up. It looks like all of our games are here. So I was wrong, it isn't a Linux partition. It does have a FAT32 partition. We'll open up Disk Manager just to take a look. Yep, sure enough, the largest partition is a FAT32 partition. It looks like the smaller ones will be the boot partitions. So it looks like it is super easy to get new games onto here. You would just copy them into the correct folder. So for Game Boy Advance, open up the Game Boy Advance folder and copy them in here. As far as thumbnails go, it looks like you just have to make sure the image matches the ROM name. So 001 Golden Sun, 001 Golden Sun. We'll take a look just to make sure. Yep, that's the thumbnail that we saw in the retro front end. Nice and easy. There is a DOS folder, which is unfortunately empty. I will be trying out some DOS games in a different video. I don't think they're going to run very well, but it'll be worth trying. If you don't have an SD reader for your computer, I believe the RG Nano can be connected over USB to access the SD card, or at least the files. So we'll try that next. I'll just safely eject the SD card first. So I've just put the SD card back into the handheld and powered it back on. We're on the main menu now, not on the clock menu. And I will connect a USB-C cable to the top. So just in there. Now the computer did detect an empty SD card reader when I connected the USB cable. So that is interesting. I believe with the USB connected, we just press the power button once to bring up the menu. And there should be one called Mount. There it is, Mount USB. Let's press that one and press it again. Give it a second, there it is. Showed up. Move the hand out of the way. Yep, it's the exact same files. So it does just mount the FAT32 partition. Nice and easy. We'll go back out, and if we select eject USB on the handheld, press A again. It says in progress. It is still showing up on my laptop. I might have to refresh this screen. So it is still showing up, and I can still access it. So the unmount doesn't really seem to do too much. Maybe it just makes sure that nothing's going on the handheld. Not too sure. Should be able to unplug it, and it obviously disappears. Overall, this is a very cool little handheld. and it seems to be on par performance-wise with something like the PowerKitty V90, not the V90S updated model, just the original. It's a bit more powerful than something like the SF2000 or GB300, but it's obviously nowhere near as powerful as something like the R36S. It has an extremely premium feel to it. It's nice and heavy. It's got a beautiful anodized aluminium case, really nice color. The buttons are all very responsive, nice and clicky, and the screen looks absolutely fantastic. My camera seems to be picking up some individual pixels, but in real life it just looks absolutely perfect. You will most likely get a hand cramp if you play for too long in one sitting, and it can also really strain your eyes, especially if you're getting a bit older and your eyes aren't as good as they used to be. I've found just using a cheap pair of reading glasses, these are just 1x, does make a huge difference. I would recommend something like 2 or 3x magnification, just to make it a little bit bigger. I would say this is definitely worth $45 Australian if you can get it on sale, but it's probably not worth the $80 retail price. Mine didn't come with a screen protector, and looking at the official unboxing video, it doesn't actually include one. So if you were to keep this on your keychain, I would expect the screen to get pretty scratched up. As mentioned, it does look really nice just sitting on your desk in clock mode, or maybe just on game intros, something like Legend of Zelda, which has a looping intro, or maybe even the Pokemon title screen, where it scrolls all the Pokemon across. I believe there is custom firmware for this, which apparently makes it a lot better, so I'll be definitely trying that out in a future video. As mentioned, I'm also keen on trying out some DOS emulation on it and seeing how well that runs. It obviously won't run higher end games like Duke 3D, at least in MS-DOS, but I'm thinking things like the original Commander Keen or Duke Nukem 1 should run, hopefully. It's also worth mentioning that there doesn't seem to be a way to enable fast forward, so you are stuck playing all your games at normal speed. It would have been nice to be able to fast forward grindier RPGs like Pokemon. I think that'll do it for today. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.